What's up guys, welcome to Vintage Genetics, where it is all about classic bodybuilding. Today is a back workout, and during a back workout I usually like to start out with a movement that warms up the back nicely, like a pull down movement, but the type of pull down is always kind of a combination in between a pull down but also a row. At least it has to feel like being able to squeeze the shoulder blades together. So we're going to do that with this lat pull down machine with two different handles allowing me to squeeze down. Let me show you exactly what it's all about. Alright, so this is the first movement in this back workout, and I have to say I quite like it. So the gym that I train at, 100% fit gym. It isn't the biggest gym, but it has all the necessary equipment to train every single muscle group in the body optimally. However, you do need to be a bit more creative sometimes, and the same goes for a very big gym that is very busy. The gym might have every single piece of equipment you want, but if you in your head have a certain workout plan and it's very busy, you still can't do the exercises that you were gonna do in your head because they're simply occupied. So in that case, and in any other case, basically if you want to try out different stuff, you can experiment with a bench like this and a lat pull down, for example, and using different kinds of techniques and exercises to still mimic stuff like a high row hammer strength, a back machine, for example. It feels very, very similar. So this one is the Unilateral lat pull down, but I kind of like to call it more like a high row, because once again, a lat pull down goes straight down, and this one pretty much goes down, but also to the back. And you can see that very clearly when you see my shoulder blades retracting. You can also see that the upper back is being worked as well, even the traps. Now this is also the case with the lat pull down, but to a much lesser degree. What you feel with the lat pull down is really the size of your back to work on the back width, so how wide your back is for the V taper. But if you want a more thick back, which is what I am personally aiming for, then sticking more to exercises like this as pull down exercises goes, that will be much better. So right here what I feel is when I go all the way up, I feel an incredible stretch in the lats, but when I go down I feel a very good contraction in the entire back basically, but mostly the middle back, a little bit of the upper back. That's what I feel the most, and that's exactly what you want to feel doing an exercise like this. Now, as you can see, I am doing a couple of working sets here. So the first working set, because I haven't done this exercise so very often, actually went a bit easier than I expected. So I hit more than 12 reps, or at least 12 reps. When you're able to do that, the next set you do, you can actually go a little heavier to be able to get in between the 8 and 12 rep range. Even maybe at least if it's above 5 reps, if your form is impeccable. But personally, for most people, especially beginners, sticking to a slightly higher rep range in between the 8 and 12 reps. Okay, next movement, we just did a pull down variation, kind of like a row as well, just it feels very awesome in the upper back thickness. Now we're going to work more towards the lower part of the back, but still that thickness area with this wide grip seated row. We're not using the widest grip, but a medium grip, because that's a different kind of grip compared to another back day where I would do a wide grip. So varying the grip width also works different parts of the back. So let's do this. Alright, so the next one of my favorite back movements has been for a while the seated row. Back in the day, if you watch videos at least 2, 3 or more years old, you can always see me doing the seated row with a narrow grip. I love to do this exercise because, if I'm honest with myself, it is an easier way of doing this movement. You don't have to, or you're not even able to contract the back as properly as with a wider grip, and you can also use a bit more momentum as you go forward all the way, and I just didn't do it the correct way. Because I watched Arnold, I watched Ronnie Coleman, and they all used that incredible range of motion, but they of course are genetic outliers, and and Ronnie Coleman, of course, had the best back in the world ever. So we all thought, well, if he does it, then it must be right. But, you know, when you look all of his other lifts, he just trained so heavily that his back would grow no matter what. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a slightly wider grip, because if you compare a wide grip to a small grip, the wide grip is more difficult because you're then able to fully contract the back, and the contraction is what causes the growth here, especially in the back thickness department. The stretch, yes, we can all do, even though some people don't even do the stretch correctly, but you have to stretch as much as you can, keeping the back upright, stretching only those lats and the rhomboids, and then going all the way back, arching the lower back and making sure to get a very good contraction in the back muscles. So what I'm doing here is I'm really focused on driving the elbows backwards and arching my lower back to make sure I attack those lower lats, the back thickness there, the Christmas tree, etc. So what I just did is 2 heavy working sets, and then this last one is a slightly lighter working set where I hit more reps obviously and go to failure on a higher rep range, attacking this exercise from different types of rep ranges, which targets the most amount of muscle fibers for growth. Okay guys, we just finished this seated row and now it's time for the ATX belt squat. But we're not doing legs. On the ATX belt squat you can not only do squats, also dips and rows for the back. So instead of a regular T-bar row, we're now doing an ATX belt squat T-bar row on this machine, and that allows you to go all the way down and all the way up because there's nothing in between. So you have all the freedom of a full range of motion, because when you do a regular T-bar row, the plates will actually go against your chest, and when you go down, the plates go against the ground. Here you don't have that problem, so let's just show you guys what it's all about. So once again, this is an exercise you can do multiple things on, just like the one we did at the very beginning, the unilateral lat pull down, where we actually took a lat pull down exercise and changed it into a high row. This ATX belt squat machine is also a multi-functional device machine, because you can actually do a T-bar row here, and the T-bar row is incredibly full range of motion, so you can go all the way down, no restriction, and go all the way up as well. And especially going all the way up here is very unique, because the plates are behind you and not in front of you. When they are in front of you, you can't infinitely go all the way up because the plates will hit your chest. Here you are only limited by how close your hands get to your stomach area, and that's pretty much the fullest range of motion you can get. Next movement will be a unilateral movement. It's going to be the Dumbbell Row, one of the exercises you guys haven't seen me do for quite a while, but still every once in a while it's a great movement to do, especially when you have done all the other exercises so much, you sort of plateau in terms of the amount of weight you can do. Then it's very good to switch out some exercises that also work for the back, like the classic old school dumbbell row. So let's do it. The dumbbell row, still one of the most old school and proven exercises to work the back. Now you can see it through my shirt. The lats are going in a full range of motion, going all the way down, achieving that stretch. Then when going up, what I'm trying to feel is the lower insertion point of my lats. I want to feel the contraction there, and also a little bit in the upper back. So if you don't feel any contraction there or any squeeze capabilities there, that means you're simply going too heavy. If you look at my body like this, it might look like I'm using momentum to lift the weight, but honestly, I'm looking for a position of my upper body to maximize the stretch and maximize the contraction. Some people might call it controlled cheating, but I just like to call it, moving with the weight and allowing my muscles to go through that full range of motion, which usually doesn't look static, but it actually looks dynamic like this. That's simply how the body works. So we started out with a light working set, then a very heavy working set, and now again a lighter working set to again hit those different rep ranges to make sure we hit the back from as many different angles as possible, as many muscle fibers being involved, and making sure the development in the back is complete. That is what we want as a bodybuilder. We don't, well, most bodybuilders, they might actually do working sets with the same amount of reps. They never go higher or lower, but in my opinion, getting stronger in the low and high rep ranges together brings you the best package, and that has brought me a lot of progression in the back for sure, especially the lower back thickness, the upper back thickness. I already had the V taper from my previous years, but the back thickness, that's what's unique. Okay guys, it's getting quite hot in the gym, but I wanted to show you this exercise without the shirt so you can actually see the back, because the last back movement is always going to be some kind of lower lat movement. And this time it's the cable pullover, the one that I do most of the time. So this one will really target the lower lat insertions, because from the front the lats seem to attach quite high. However, from the back they attach quite low, so you want to maximize that effect by making the lower part thicker. So let's do it. So now it is time for the rope or cable pullover. So I told you guys many times before that I used to do the dumbbell pullover, but the biggest, most incredible difference with the dumbbell pullover compared to the cable pullover is that here, and that's why I'm not wearing a shirt, you can actually see the contraction at the bottom of my back. So that lower back, that lower lat insertion, that is what I want to work on. You can literally see that contracting, as well as those Christmas tree muscles around the spine in the middle there. That's what you work when doing a cable pullover. When you do a dumbbell pullover, you mostly work the stretch, which you also work here. So you can see here on the side the serratus coming out of my lats right there at the bottom. That's what you really work with the dumbbell pullover, the most effectively, I might add. But for me, those are already developed enough. So what I do is a cable pullover to develop the part of my back that aren't developed enough yet, like those lower lats. And that's why this exercise is really great for that. So there's one thing I should explain. No, I didn't tear my chest. Kind of does look like it, but it's not. Nothing to worry about, because this was caused by scraping a massage therapy technique to really loosen up the connective tissue, because especially my chest and my front delt were quite tight, and I always go to Nguyen Sports Performance because he is the one who is my massage therapist, and I go to him especially closer to a contest to really help me heal up, recover. So check him out on Instagram to check out what he's all about. You'll see him a lot more on my channel, because as a professional bodybuilder or a serious athlete, it's very important to get the most out of your body, especially recovery when nutrition is down, training is up. The only thing you can do is sleep enough and recover enough, and massage therapy is a big part of that for sure. Time to work the biceps, and one of my favorite movements. If you've been following the channel for some years, you know that from the very beginning I like to do close grip preacher curls, because those attach or attack the outer part of the bicep, which makes the peak of the bicep, and that's what you want. So we're first starting with just a bar, warming up so we know that we can do the full range of motion without any irritation of the tendons, and then we ramp up the weight. So let's do it. After finishing the back, then it is time for the biceps. And you guys might know I like to combine the rear delts with the back movements and the side delts with the chest movements. So why didn't I do the rear delts? Well, my rear delts are quite developed already, and the triceps are more of a weak point. So if you get overpowering rear delts and weaker triceps, your triceps in comparison look even weaker than they actually are. And that's what you want to avoid, and that is also why those old school guys from the 70s who didn't really have round shoulders appeared to have such enormous arms, because in comparison to the shoulders, their arms were incredibly big. And that's the true old school look. I just happen to have good genetics for building shoulders, so I don't have a separate shoulder day at all. I might train shoulders once every 2 months or so, if that, and I only do that for YouTube because I never do that for myself. So what I do is I target the individual part of my shoulder with the back and the chest, but because the rear delts are already developed, I only train them once every 2 back workouts to pretty much maintain their size, and until the rest of my body grows, that's when I will start to more frequently train them to make sure they keep up with the rest. But for now, that is not the case. And here we have some preacher curls. Some close grip preacher curls, which are incredible for the bicep peak. So what I'm doing here is 2 working sets with 2 warm-ups before. So even though when you train the back, the biceps are already warmed up, if you isolate the biceps and you have a history of bicep tendonitis or any irritation in the bicep at all, then I strongly recommend warming up the biceps before going heavy like this. So I could go a lot heavier here if I wanted to, but I'm truly focusing on that stretch and on the contraction. And for biceps, you really don't have to go heavy to make sure those biceps grow. The last movement of the day is going to be a cable bicep movement. And the cable, the biggest benefit of this is complete tension from the bottom to the top. You can even emphasize the tension by putting your upper body forward a little bit, allowing the tension to be a lot higher at the very top. So let's do that, and the grip will also be as wide as possible on this particular bar, so to make a big difference compared to the first close grip movement. So this cable curl feels pretty awesome as well. So what I'm doing is I'm holding this bar as wide as I can, which ends up to be about shoulder width. But there's something about holding it at this width with this specific bar and the specific cable tension that makes it feel just that much more incredible. So what I'm also doing is I'm leaning forward just a little bit with my body to allow the tension of the biceps to still be there at the very bottom of the movement. So try this, guys. Instead of leaning back and removing tension at the bottom, try leaning forward and you will feel a lot more tension, making the exercise more difficult to do. And the more difficult an exercise is to do, the more progress you will make in terms of muscle growth, because more adaptations need to be made to be able to do that exercise easier the next time. So try this out. If you have a bar like this at your gym, hold it as wide as you can, especially after having done a close grip movement before, and you will feel the difference. People say, well, a curl is a curl, but trust me, the width of which you hold the bar makes an incredibly big difference, in my opinion, in the way it feels, in the way that bicep stretches, how it contracts. It's just amazing. Alrighty guys, that was the back and bicep workout. Some different movements, but the basics always remain to make sure you keep progressing on the movements you're used to. So hopefully with the next competition, the back will be improved compared to my Olympia 2020 shape. So that's what we're going for, of course. Progress is key. I want to thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out vintagegenetics.com for classic, old school, golden era clothing, and don't forget to stay golden.